One of my favorite lines in the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, our core text of Jewish tradition, is Tzedek, Tzedek Tirdof. Justice, justice, you shall pursue, in the book of Deuteronomy. That is such at the core of Jewish belief that it's been something that's always been part of my psyche, the genetic makeup of Judaism, whatever you want to call it. It's just so much a part of who we are. And in fact, if you look at the Torah, the middle book, Leviticus, the middle chapter, around chapter 19, is what we call the Holiness Code, the sets of laws for Jews which teach us how to be holy, how to be more like the divine in the universe. And in the very center of that chapter is another great line of our text, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. This is what we do. Looking at our tradition, it's our sacred mission, our sacred obligation to do what we call tikkun olam, repairing the world, taking what we see in the world around us that is clearly broken, even those pieces that don't necessarily look broken but that we recognize as broken, and do what we can do as human beings here on earth in our own lives to make the world better. We recognize that we cannot do it alone. We recognize that we cannot do it ourselves. We probably can't accomplish it in this life, but by working together with other people and with other religions and coming side by side, we hope and we dream that we can build a world that is better. Rabbi Hillel, one of the great sages of the rabbinic period, lived in around the 1st century before the Common Era until around 10 of the Common Era, so around the time of Jesus. One of his great quotes was, "If I am not for myself, who will be for me? If I am only for myself, what am I? If not now, when?" And I want to look at a couple of modern voices as well. And for this, I have notes. And I forgot to sync my Dropbox onto my iPad, so I'm using my phone. Technology is our friend and our enemy at all times. 2 men of modern Judaism, both of whom were dear friends of Martin Luther King, whose thoughts I think of and whose words I think of and really see as role models of modern Judaism and modern prophetic voices. One of which is Rabbi Maurice Eisendrath, who was the president of the Jewish Reform Movement. Temple Bethel, where I work, is a Reform synagogue. An entire another panel discussion can be on different kinds of Judaism. But upon his death, one thing that was said about him was that he was a disturber of sleep who brought discomfort to the comfortable. And he worked side by side with Dr. King and did great work in civil rights and in social justice in our world. One of his great quotes, or that I think is great at least, "The world needs Judaism. It's compassion instead of the machismo of today's violence. It's optimism in the face of despair. It's compassion in the face of human callousness. It's reverence for life in the mind of defiance, of emotionalism run riot. It's love of learning and passion for justice. It's hunger for peace as the apex of God's kingdom, and its partnership with God in setting the world aright." There's wisdom there. I also look to Abraham Joshua Heschel, perhaps the greatest theologian of modern Jewish history and modern Jewish thought, and also a civil rights activist. Myself and Jews my age all grew up with the picture of him marching in Selma with Dr. King, literally side by side. He came there just for the march. Heschel embraced him and welcomed him and took him to his side. One thing that Heschel wrote about in his diary entry following that march is the following. "I thought of having walked with Hasidic rabbis on various occasions. I felt a sense of the holy in what I was doing. Dr. King expressed several times to me his appreciation. He said, 'I cannot tell you how much our presence means to us. You cannot imagine how often Reverend Vivian and I speak about you.' Dr. King said to me, this was the greatest day in his life and the most important civil rights demonstration. I felt again what I have been thinking about for years, that Jewish religious institutions have again missed a great opportunity, namely to interpret a civil rights movement in terms of Judaism. The vast majority of Jews participating actively in it are totally unaware of what the movement means in terms of the prophetic traditions. And one more thing that he said regarding the march, which if I could find it here, there we go. For many, the march in Selma, I just lost it, sorry. For many, the march in Selma to Montgomery was about protest and prayer. Legs are not lips, and walking is not kneeling, and yet our legs uttered songs. Even without words, our march was worship. I felt my legs were praying. I love that image, that blurring of the prayer that we do and the action that we take. And it is my hope and one of my own goals in my own prayer life, in my own spiritual life, that my prayer will disturb me to action, that when I pray for a better world, it will remind me of what I need to do in order to build that world. And at the same time, that taking my hand and doing work and doing justice and bringing more right into the world will help me to feel closer to the divine in the universe and bring me to spiritual moments. One of the most often repeated verses in the Torah is that, "Be kind to the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt." It is our sacred tradition to look at those who are unfortunate or who are suffering in the world, those who need more justice, those who are not being treated the way that they should be treated, and to help them to not be strangers anymore. One more story, going back to Rabbi Hillel before I turn the mic over. A potential convert, someone who was looking to be Jewish, went to Rabbi Hillel one day and said, "Teach me the Torah while standing on one leg." While the previous rabbi had literally beat him away with a stick, Rabbi Hillel said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to your brother. The rest is commentary. Go and learn it."